Welcome back to the kitchen with Michelle. Let's see what we're cooking today. Here I've got some homemade chicken stock that we cook for the chicken and rice soup. I boiled a big pot of chicken with some water and seasonings. And over here we have 2 cups of all-purpose flour that we're going to make a delicious pastry with, a homemade pastry. And I'm ladling in the chicken stock, and each ladle's probably about a half a cup. So I'm putting about 2 cups of chicken stock to 2 cups of flour. And over here we're going to roll it out, but I let it sit in the flour for just a little while to see how much it's going to take in, and I eventually need a little bit more, believe it or not. I'm going to add some more. The key to getting this consistency right is giving it time to rest in between additions. I'm going to pour a little bit more, and you're just going to have to kind of eyeball this because humidity plays a part in this as well. We kind of pour it and then mix it up, and what we're trying to form here is a dough that comes together, and it will be a little sticky, but it won't be really wet, and you'll know when it comes together. Just keep adding a little bit and stirring, and it'll start to pull away from the sides and not be the flour in the bottom. Can you see that we had some more flour in the bottom? I just poured just a few drops over that, and it's really starting to come away. Do you see? But I want to make sure I go through it thoroughly that all the flour is wet and is incorporated into the dough. And I'm getting ready to start pouring it out. But first we've got to flour the surface. So here we are sprinkling out some all-purpose flour on the board that I have. It is a pastry sheet board. And you don't have to use this. You can use a piece of parchment paper, or if you've got a very, very clean countertop, you can use your countertop. Let's get the pastry out of this bowl and take your time and get it all out. And it's going to look like a glob just kind of sitting there. We're going to cover it and sprinkle it a little bit with flour and start pressing it down. But if you've got rings, you may want to take them off, or you can put gloves on your hands. I've chosen to put gloves on this time. So I'm going to start pressing it down. And your gloves might start to stick. So press your hands in the flour and press it around. And it's going to start getting flat. And you add a little bit more flour and fold it over on each other into thirds. Now fold the other third over, and if you get any sticky, just put a little bit more flour to it. Then we're going to fold it in the middle on one side, fold it in the middle on the other, and press it down. And make sure it's always in contact with the flour. Add some more if you need to. Put it back down, and we're going to do the very same thing. Add a little bit more flour, and we're going to start rolling it out. Put a little flour onto your rolling pin and rub it around a little bit. And we're going to get ready and roll it out flat. And you can decide how thick you want your dumplings. Here we roll them out pretty thin. In some areas they like them a little thicker. It is your preference what you want to do. But this time I'm going to roll this out and cut it in half so I can work with a smaller batch of dough. I'm going to split this batch in 2. If you run into parts that stick onto your rolling pin, make sure you put some flour on it and patch it back up. Okay, I'm going to take the flour and pat it around the edges, and I'm going to loosen it from the bottom into thirds again. And if it starts sticking, you guessed it, you add a little bit more dusting of flour, and you're going to release it from the pastry mat. So keep on doing that. And we added the flour and set it back down, and we're going to do it on the bottom as well. So fold it over, add some more flour. And maintaining a floured surface is very important because you do not want it to stick, especially when you're cutting it. So we're going to roll it out one more time. And this time we're going to split it into halves. If you need some more flour on your rolling pin, you can always add some more. But the first sign of sticking, that's what you do. And you're going to gently cut it in half. I'm just going to divide it right down the middle. And I'm going to ball up one side and work with the other. Here is the other half that I'm going to work with. And we're going to roll it out. We always will add a little bit more flour if needed, if it's sticking at all. This is rolling pretty good. I'm re-flouring the rolling pin. Roll it back and forth as thin as you like. Now this is probably, I get it about 1/8 of an inch thin, but you know, just work with it and see what you like. I like mine a little thicker than my mother likes hers. She rolls it out so thin she can see a newspaper through it. But once you get that rolled out, we're going to take the knife again and we're going to cut it into long strips from left to right. And I probably cut them about 1.5 inches wide. And then we're going to divide it once that in half. Be sure to stabilize when you're cutting with your other two index, with your index and your middle finger while you're cutting so it doesn't slip. And you can see there how thin it is. And we're going to lay that on a piece of parchment paper. I've removed all of it from the pastry mat and I'm going to work with the second batch. I'm going to form it into another ball on a floured surface. Make sure I sprinkle a little flour on it. And then flour my rolling pin again if it needs it, if it's sticky at all. I'm going to turn it over, pat it a little bit more flour, and roll it up and down until I get it thin as I want it. One thing I want to mention, making your dough. If you're just using water instead of seasoned chicken broth or chicken stock, you're going to want to season that flour with salt and pepper and a little garlic or whatever you would season your chicken and pastry with or chicken and rice soup with. Okay, I've got that rolled out and now we're going to cut the second batch with strips and get those off. With this second batch, I'm going to leave it on the pastry mat and pull from it. I don't have to put it on a piece of parchment paper. I can leave it right here. Let's get it in the pot. For your chicken stock, you want to bring it up to a boil, and if you had to use any extra water in it, you're going to have to re-season it with your chicken base, okay? Let's let this stuff boil. Here we go. We're going to put the strips in the pot because the water is boiling. We're going to lay them lengthwise carefully, not on top of each other. And it's going to have flour on the strip, so it's going to boil over just a little bit or boil up. We don't want it to boil over. But watch it. It will come right back down, see? And they're going to boil, and you just carefully keep laying them in the boiling water. We're not going to stir them until you get all your pastry strips in there. Do not stir. Temperature-wise now, I'm going to probably bring it down from high to medium high. I'm going to finish laying the strips in there and get them all in there and then push them down gently with a flat spatula. Do not stir. And we still have this on medium high, and they're going to cook probably a good 10 minutes, and then they'll be done. So I've got a few more strips to get in there. I just want to make sure they're all under the boiling water. Okay, I'm letting this boil, and I'm going to turn it down to about medium, level 5, and let it just cook. I've got some chicken that I picked off the bones. If you'll look at the video for the chicken and rice soup, I'll show you how to stew that chicken and get it right so you can pull off the bone and add it too. And now I'm just very gently incorporating it. I'm not stirring it. I'm just kind of lifting it up so the chicken will go through and through. While we're letting that simmer and finish cooking, I'm going to tell you about this pot. You want to make sure you only fill up the water so you can have about 2 or 3 inches left from the top. Here we're going to taste it. I have dished out a little bit of pastry and chicken, and it's going to be tender enough for me. I just kind of taste it and sample it. And it needs to be kind of wiggly. And of course, I had to add more pepper. And it is so good and so delicious. And instead of just tasting, I'm going to eat it all. Yep. That's me tasting it. And I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking it's pretty darn good. Near perfect, that's what I just said. And you can make this delicious chicken and pastry or chicken and dumplings for your own family.